What's happening, all you lovely people? Welcome back to my channel, Danny FYR. Find your reason. I'm Danny B, aka Stan, aka whatever the you wanna call me. Question for you. Like, if you've ever walked down the street and, like, you've just looked at someone and just thought, like, whoa, bit off, you know, something proper, like, psycho-ish about them. Future prisoner or future serial killer or something, you know what I mean? I walk through town and I think that about people quite often, actually. But the video we're watching today is about the most feared prisoners in prison that are still alive today. That's a video today, and it's from the most amazing elite. So go subscribe to them if you wanna. But more importantly, please consider subscribing to my channel. And yeah, that's it. Let's get into this video.
Number 10, the Eyeball Man. Can anyone honestly say they aren't scared of this guy? The dude blacked out his eyeball, so he looked like a demonic Jack Skellington. More like Hack Skellington. Eyeball Man's real name is Jason Barnum and is currently living out a 22-year sentence for shooting an Alaska police officer. Barnum's crime was heavily influenced by a hefty addiction to chasing the dragon. 3 officers were investigating vehicle break-ins and burglaries in South Anchorage and spotted a vehicle related to the attacks in a hotel parking lot. They checked out the security footage and saw a man carrying a tote to room 209. Barnum and 2 others...
That's tough, that. Getting your eyeball tattooed all black like that. That's tough, that. That must have... I mean, I've got a few tattoos. That's got to have hurt, man. That's... you know.
To the attacks in a hotel parking lot. They checked out the security footage and saw a man carrying a tote to room 209. Barnum and 2 others were in the room, and when officers entered the bathroom, the shootout began. Barnum was injured in the arm, but they arrested him when he got out of the hospital. Whoa. And they had to deal with how terrifying he looks, even though he's behind bars. So, yeah. Number 9, Eric R. Rudolph.
You wouldn't like to meet him in a dark alley, would you? God dang. Imagine walking past him in the street and it's just you and him. Oh no, what would you do? Just one of them where you like put your eyes to the floor and just carry on walking up and nothing gets said? Or do you interact hoping that he might, because you're being friendly, he might be friendly, you know what I mean? Nah, I wouldn't want to be in that situation with him. Plain and simple.
Resourceful and resilient, Eric R. Rudolph quickly got on America's Most Wanted list. Why? Well, during 1996 to 1998, Eric detonated bombs 4 times in Atlanta and Birmingham, taking the lives of 2 people and injuring thousands. A 5-year manhunt ensued. He was finally caught in May 2003 after he was found rummaging through a dumpster. Later, it was revealed how intense his survival skills were. For 5 years, Eric foraged off the lands and survived off of buried barrels of grain and soy. He learned the schedules of when produce was going to be thrown out at grocery stores and stole what he could where it wouldn't be noticed. His motivation behind the bombings was a compilation of radical anti-gay, anti-abortion, and anti-government. The list goes on.
I mean, if he put them, like the skills he had there, the way he was foraging off the land and he knew when wheat products were being thrown out and all that, if he put that to good use, you know what I mean? He could have probably done anything. Maniacs.
He didn't get along with other people, and when he confessed to his crimes, he showed no remorse. But when he was taken away to go to prison, authorities report that the man had tears in his eyes, knowing he was utterly defeated. What can I say, man? Your actions brought you to where you are now, so sorry about it. Sorry, not sorry. Number 8, Robert P. Hansen. The man the FBI was afraid of, and he was right under their noses. Joining them for lunch in the cafe, grabbing coffee with them, laughing at the cooler. But all the while, Robert P. Hansen was a mole. On February 18th of 2001, Robert was arrested and charged with committing espionage on behalf of intelligence services for the former Soviet Union and their successors. He was caught red-handed placing a package containing highly classified information at a park in Vienna, Virginia for his Russian handlers. When the FBI FBI searched his apartment, it became apparent his payment was in cash and diamonds with a value of over $600,000. Hansen handed over dozens of delicate files, including FBI counterintelligence investigative techniques, sources, methods, operations. He exposed the FBI's secret investigation of Felix Bloch, a Foreign Service officer for espionage. He pled guilty to 15 accounts of espionage on July 6, 2001, and was sentenced to prison without the possibility of parole.
I'm sorry, but I don't know why he would be considered one of the most feared prisoners.
He's considered the most dangerous spy in FBI history. God knows
dangerous
what he said.
Spy,
Number
I
7,
get it.
David Carpenter. I know Lisa Rinna from Dancing with the Stars because I love a good foxtrot. Love it. But she's actually more well known for being a desperate housewife. But it turns out that her very own mother was actually David Carpenter's first victim. She knew him from work and he offered to give her a ride home, and he had kids and a wife. Soon he was on top of her, hammer and knife in hand, but thankfully a cop was nearby who suspected something was amiss.
Sorry, but what I was talking there earlier when I said, you know, you're walking down the street, that is the picture of the guy I was talking. Like, people like that, you know, like, even the mannerisms and that. That's who I was talking about, him. Not exactly him, but...
He was on top of her, hammer and knife in hand, but thankfully, a cop was nearby who suspected something was amiss, so she was saved. David was sentenced to 14 years in prison, where he was diagnosed as a sociopath with a very high IQ. He was released after only 9 years and quickly went on to commit more attacks against women. Good call on releasing him,
exactly.
Just saying. Like, what? Ugh. I hate that. I hate that. At one time, he was even suspected of being the Zodiac Killer. Instead, he became known as the trailside killer who would prey on women on hiking trails. He took the lives of 10 people, though it's probable that there were more. Just 2 survived, and officers described that he was a kind of Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of behavior. He was super nice, but then he had this insane, psycho, creepy, dark side as well. Number 6, Zacarias Musawi.
They're the most dangerous, I'd imagine.
Intended as a holding cell to teach prisoners proper conduct before they are sent to penitentiaries. However, some are so bad that they are never released for fear they might inspire new crimes if allowed to communicate to those outside the walls. Zacarias is one of them. He is currently serving out 6 life sentences for assisting the hijackers who carried out the, you guessed it, the 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Center. Musawi was placed on a watch list in 1999 when he started interacting with Islamist extremists. He could have prevented the attacks entirely, however, he lied to the FBI about the Al-Qaeda and their plans to attack the US. He was even supposed to pilot a plane into the White House. He was arrested in August 2001 and went on trial in 2006. Throughout the trial, he praised the Al-Qaeda and was removed for several outbursts. A very different tone to the note he wrote recently in 2020, renouncing Al-Qaeda and appealed to younger Muslims to be wary of their deceptive ways. I really do hope he is genuinely released those ideals. However, he did do it in an attempt to relax his sentence.
Yeah, exactly. He wants to relax his sentence, man. If that ideology was already in his mindset, I doubt just going into prison will have changed him. If anything, he'll have sat there studying his Quran, it'll just reinforced what he already thought.
As recently as 2018, he was still referring to himself as a natural-born terrorist, so needless to say, I don't see things relaxing anytime soon. Number 5, the marathon bomber, Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. Speaking of the ADX prison, there is yet another permanent resident behind its walls. Dzhokhar Tsarnaev is responsible for the 2013 Boston Marathon bombing, which took the lives of 3 people and injured 250 people in the large crowd. This event shook the world, and I remember when it happened. I remember checking my phone repeatedly in order to figure out what's happening and follow with updates, and I'm sure a lot of you do too. He and his brother Tamerlane used 2 pressure cookers packed with explosives and shrapnel. His brother was shot during a police chase while Dzhokhar was taken into custody. He was 19 when he committed the crime and 21 when he was finally tried. The trial consisted of heartbreaking testimonies from families of the injured and the dead. The death penalty was disbanded in Boston for decades, but it was considered for this case as it was a federal case. He was instead given his life sentence to be served out in solitary confinement with no opportunities to communicate with the outside world, and that is probably how it's going to remain for the rest of his life.
Yep, just send himself insane. Talk to himself for the rest of his life. That must be fun.
Wow, so young. Number 4, the Nithari Killers. The Nithari crimes came to light on December 29th, 2006, after 8 skeletal remains of young bodies were found in the drain of a house in Nithari, Noida. The owner of the house and the businessman Mohinder Singh Pandar and the domestic help Surinder Kohli were arrested. Soon after they were found, even more bodies turned up. The village had been making noise about the disappearances for a while before anything was done, but now the Nithari Killers remain some of the most horrific people behind bars. Over 16 young people fell victim to kidnapping, vicious bodily violations, and death, which believed to have occurred between 2005 to 2006. Both men have been found guilty and the death penalty is in discussion, though has been delayed. Some believe that there is money involved in the case that may result in an unfair result, but considering the severity of the case, release is not really on the table. I'm not gonna lie, it was hard to get a straight story on this. There's a lot of convoluted details across the articles I could find, so if you have more info you want to share, drop it down below. Number 3, Larry Hoover. This dude is so powerful that he was continuing to run his operation while serving out a 200-year sentence for murder. Larry Hoover was, / is, I suppose, the chairman of the notorious gangster Disciples gang. He was convicted 2 decades ago of continuing to run his empire behind bars. Hoover, now 70, is serving out 6 life sentences at the Supermax Federal Prison in Florence, Colorado, a facility that holds the worst of the worst. Terrorists, mobsters, anyone who'd be a danger to anyone from the outside. It is said to be the most secure in the country. He established the gang in Chicago in the 1960s and has recently decided to try and take some of them down. The indictment accused 7 state and national leaders of the gangster Disciples of racketeering conspiracy, drug trafficking, witness intimidation, and multiple murders, including the 2018 death of a 65-year-old ranking member of the gang on Chicago's South Side. Beware if you've ever crossed Larry Hoover, because even behind bars, you can't stop him. Number 2, James Marcelo. I honestly sound like I'm in a 1940s film noir when I was researching this. You'll see why in a second. He is the highest ranking Chicago mob boss in...
Sorry about that. That was my daughter trying to ring me. Sorry about that. I got a little distracted. Right. Let me... go back here.
In 60s and has recently decided to try and take some of them down. The indictment accused 7 state and national leaders of the gangster Disciples of racketeering conspiracy, drug trafficking, witness intimidation, and multiple murders, including the 2018 death of a 65-year-old ranking member of the gang on Chicago's South Side. Beware if you've ever crossed Larry Hoover, because even behind bars, you can't stop him. Number 2, James Marcelo. I honestly sound like I'm in a 1940s film noir when I was researching this. You'll see why in a second. He is the highest ranking Chicago mob boss in prison, also known as Jimmy the Man Marcelo. Now at the age of 76, he filed a petition in June 2020 to have his sentence tossed out. Jimmy was one of 5 top criminals who were convicted of the 2007 Family Secrets racketeering case.
Yeah, man, like them surveillance. You can just tell, like, the mob, can't you? Just, like, the way they look and everything, man. It's just that look. He's got, like, the bracelet on and that. And he's got the shades on. And I don't know, even, like, the bald and male pattern baldness in him. Yeah, man, I don't know. That's just a typical mob surveillance shot to me, that.
He was convicted of taking the lives of Tony the Ant Spilotro and his brother Michael. They were found in a cornfield in June 1986 after being beaten and strangled to death in Jimmy's basement. He was sentenced to life in prison in 2009 and currently resides at the Supermax facility in Colorado, just like Mr. Hoover. Marcelo's father was also in the biz, and so was his big brother, Big Mickey. The family had influence. There were crimes that hit the news and crimes no one knows about. Either way, now Jimmy wants out. He's like, come on, give an old guy a break. Not for you, Jimmy. Not for you.
Hi.
Sorry about the adverts, people.
I'm here with our wellness.
And last but not least, Modsley.
Cup of tea.
When I started reading about this guy, I literally had to step away from my desk. There were some images I just didn't want to read, but here we are. Meet the man so dangerous that he is now kept in a below-ground glass box.
This is in my country, this. Yeah. This is in England, this.
Not only did he take lives outside of prison, but inside of it, he was the man everyone feared. The point that made me turn away was what he did with a spoon, which dubbed him the nickname of Hannibal the Cannibal. Robert Modsley has been locked away in a glass box, just like the infamous villain, for over 40 years. He was sentenced to life in prison after taking the lives of 4 people. His crimes were so violent, the cops nicknamed him Blue because that was the color of the first victim. But his crimes did not end behind bars. He brutalized and took the lives of abusers of young victims behind bars in vicious and terrifying ways, just like you would predict people would do in prison. He was so volatile and laissez-faire about it that the only thing the prison thought to do about it was build him his own cage. He is allowed 1 hour of exercise a day. His childhood was riddled with abuse, and he would often take most of it to protect his siblings. This violent childhood, along with his extreme intelligence, resulted in a violent appetite. However, after 40 years of psychiatry, appeals are being made to improve his well-being. Honestly, he did some awful stuff. If there's
you don't want that dude ever out.
The worst of us, then it should be at
because
least
he
attempted.
did do
That's my
some
mentality
bad,
of it,
sick
but man,
stuff, man.
Oof, creepy.
It's stuff she wouldn't be able to talk about on YouTube, but that's why, believe me, they haven't just built his own glass box underneath a prison for no reason, you know what I mean? So that tells a story of the man.
Richard Matt. Matt's career as a criminal started off when he was young. He was involved in robberies, kidnappings, and then eventually murder. The first murder he committed was of his former boss. He then fled to Mexico to avoid being caught. While there, he murdered a second man while attempting to rob him. In 2007, he was convicted for the murders and began serving a 25-year to life sentence. But guess what? 2015, he actually escaped the facility with a fellow inmate, and they spent 20 days on the run before getting re-caught. And apparently he has a history of jailbreaks, so I don't know why they just didn't pay closer attention to him. In the end, this was his final escape since he was caught and killed by Border Patrol while trying to flee to Canada. In our 9th spot, we have the dating game killer. This dude gets his name because while police were looking for him, he appeared on TV for an episode of the dating game in 1978. He did this in the midst of his murder spree. In fact, the dater on the show actually chose him, but when they met afterwards, she said that she got a bad feeling around him and they never actually went on a date, which that was a close call for her. Because during his appearance on the show, he had already murdered at least 5 women. His date would have probably been his next victim. This killer would often toy with his victims. He would strangle them until they lost consciousness, then he would revive them, and then repeat this process several times before taking their lives. In the end, he was convicted of murdering 5 women, but police think that his kill count is much, much higher.
I have heard of that dude though, the dating game killer, yeah. Can I say he was a serial killer? If you're into that type of stuff, you've probably heard about him yourself.
But we have the razor blade. This story comes from a prisoner who was locked away in a Texas prison. The prisoner told the story of a fellow inmate who everyone feared. It was this woman who would violently lash out on her fellow inmates. One time, she even put a razor blade in a bar of soap and would use it to cut up other prisoners. When the guards found them, there was blood everywhere. So yeah, I can see why people fear her. I wouldn't want to get on her bad side, let alone even look at her. Moving on to number 7, we have Ronnie McPeters. One of the scariest inmates in the world is said to be Ronnie McPeters. Ronnie was sent to jail for the murder of a 27-year-old woman in 1984. The woman, Linda Marie Baltazar, was running errands when Ronnie came up to her window panhandling. She shooed him away and he left, but then he ended up coming back, this time armed. He then shot her 5 times. As a result, he was arrested and sent to Fresno jail. But his bad behavior never stopped. While in jail, he would set fires, attack other prisoners, and even sometimes would, smear his feces on the walls and floors and sometimes all over his body. Now, he was actually put on death row for his crimes, but he was deemed, and I quote, too insane to be executed. And
I've actually seen a documentary about prisons. I'm not sure which one it was, but there's quite a lot of prisoners in American jails, that have mental illnesses. And a lot of them do things like that, them cut themselves, hurt themselves. But feces is involved in it quite a lot of the time as well. Like within the mental patients will smear it on their own walls and that. As disgusting as it is, but they need help, they need treatment.
Sixth spot, we have Joanna Denny. Joanna is a serial killer who, in March of 2013, went on a 10-day killing spree. She murdered 3 men, but her goal was to murder 9. She said she wanted to be like the killers Bonnie and Clyde. After killing the men, she would throw their bodies in ditches. In fact, she has the title of one of Britain's most notorious female murderers. While in prison, Joanna has made it a point to prove to other serial killers that she is the best killer among them. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Inmate from Hell. So this story comes from a nurse who worked at a prison. She shared the story of the scariest inmate that she has ever encountered. This inmate would go around biting officers in their arms and shoulders. He would headbutt them as well as even punch them directly in the face. He has broken people's bones and even ripped out chunks of flesh off of them with his teeth.
Damn.
Yeah, that must have been terrifying to see. Like, what the heck?
Why didn't they, if he kept doing that, why didn't they have him always walking around in one of them hoods? You know what I mean?
Moving on to number 4,
like one
we
of them
have
spit
Pascal
hoods.
Paya. Pascal Paya is a French criminal who was sent to jail for committing a murder during a robbery in 1997. But he is famous for his daring prison escapes. In 2001, this dude managed to escape prison using a hijacked helicopter. But he didn't perform this stunt just once. No, he escaped twice. So obviously he was caught and then sent back to jail. Then in 2007, he did it again. It only took him 5 minutes. Within that time frame, 4 masked men hijacked a helicopter and took the pilot hostage. They then landed on the roof of the prison and used some device to open the doors and get Pascal out of his cell.
3 times he hijacked a helicopter. I wonder if he sucks. Well, he must have got caught again, man. But that's got to take some planning, some balls to do. You know what I mean? And I mean, I know he's a criminal, but kudos for the guy who keep trying. You know what I mean? I'm not staying here. Let me out.
Like I said, they were in and out within 5 minutes. 2 days after this escape, an arrest warrant was issued against him. Nowadays, he is never kept at the same prison for more than 6 months. And he's placed in solitary confinement where he is under high surveillance. They don't want him escaping for a 3rd time. In our 3rd spot, we have Damien Folks. Alright folks, let's talk about Damien Folks. See what I did there? Anyways, this guy, don't get me started. So this guy was serving a life in term in jail for armed robbery. While in jail, he attacked a number of prisoners. He strangled killer Colin Hatch with strips of bedding and also slashed the throat of Soham murderer Ian Huntley.
Yes.
And this is what he had to say to that. He said, "I hope I killed him. I've been planning it for weeks." Now, Ian Huntley did survive, but he had a 7-inch wound that just missed his jugular vein. But that's why Damien is considered incredibly dangerous.
I didn't mean yes,
Mark Hobson.
condoning violence there. I just want to get that out. I wasn't condoning violence, but I was saying, yeah. I mean, I knew who he was. That some killer. Horrible man.
Went on a killing spree in North Yorkshire, England in 2004. As a result, he took the lives of 4 people. But he was also involved in a nationwide manhunt, which involved more than 500 police officers and 12 police forces all looking for him. During that time, he was considered Britain's most wanted man. And this is another dude that is not afraid to get violent with others. In September of 2005, he poured a bucket of boiling water over a fellow killer. And on a number of other occasions, he has attacked other prisoners. As a result, he is another prisoner who is kept under close surveillance at all times. And in our number 1 spot today, we have Robert Maudsley. Robert Maudsley has actually been named Britain's most dangerous prisoner. Now you might be wondering, Lindsay, why is that? Well, oh boy, let me tell you. In 1977, Maudsley and his fellow inmates held another prisoner hostage. They tortured him for 9 hours before cracking his head open and killing him. And rumor has it that he even ate some of the prisoner's brain.
There you go.
As a result, he was deemed the real-life
He's done worse
Hannibal
than that
Lecter.
as well.
A couple months later, he murdered 2 other inmates, then casually told the prison officer that during the next roll call, he would be too short. As a result, he's actually kept in an isolated glass cell so guards can see what he's up to at all times. They don't want another hostage situation to occur ever again. Starting off this countdown, we have the Man in the Iron Mask. The Man in the Iron Mask is the name given to an...
we're going to leave it there because I thought it was just scary prisoners. We're not doing the solitary confinement one. We might do that another time. But that was 2 lists of the most feared prisoners still alive in prison today. And out of that list, I'd say to me, the end one, that Robert Maudsley, but I can't really say a lot about it because it is that disturbing. I mean, Facebook wouldn't appreciate it, you know what I mean, some of the stuff, so that's why he's where he is, underground, deservedly. Unfortunately, we don't have the death penalty in this country no more, so, well, we haven't had it since the 60s, but let me know what you thought, who you thought the most interesting, horrible, weird character. That dude with a black eye, man, that was, yeah, he was more going for a look, though, I think, like, you know, that scary look, like, don't fuck with me anyway, you know what I mean? Because people are going to see him, even if he could be the tamest lad ever, but if he's got them tattoos all tattooed on him, his eye blacked, fucking up and everything, people are gonna think twice straight away and go, whoa, I don't want to go near him, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, that was that list. I hope you enjoyed it, but for that video, I'm out. Subscribe to my channel, please, if you would consider doing that. Yeah, I'm Danny B, aka Stan, aka whatever the you wanna call me. And you know how it go, people. Until next time, peace.